Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to the channel. In this one, I really wanted to give you guys a follow-up on the whole Battle Aces monetization debacle that we talked about in the previous video. It looked like most of you guys, if not all of you, agreed with me that the monetization in the game is definitely egregious. It's really not on to be gating units in the game, especially not in an RTS game, behind paid content, in this case a paid battle pass. And as luck would have it, the lead designer of the game, David Kim, has left a lengthy Reddit post going over much of his thoughts on monetization and what they plan to do with the game going forward. As always guys, if you do enjoy the content here on the channel, hit up the subscription button, hit the like button down below, and as always guys, thank you so much for the support. So first of all, for those of you who aren't aware, let's have a little bit of background on just who exactly David Kim is. So he used to play competitive StarCraft and Warcraft 3. He then was recruited by Relic Entertainment, where he worked on Company of Heroes and Dawn of War, which are other RTS games. And then after StarCraft 2 was revealed, he applied for a position on the team there, and he was hired soon afterwards as the Associated Game Balance Designer. He was later promoted to Senior Game Designer, beginning his work on the game in 2007, and then after that he became the game's lead multiplayer designer. He's also worked on Heroes of the Storm and map design there. He worked on Diablo 4 for a short while, and eventually he saw that Blizzard weren't going to be making any sort of RTS game in the near future where his skill set could be steadily applied, so he decided to branch off, quit Blizzard, and go and make his own game company, hence Uncapped Games and Battle Aces. So it's fair to say then that he definitely has quite the history in RTS games. So then, this is the post here from David Kim. It's called Current Thoughts on Monetization. And this is a direct response to all of the negative lashback he's seen so far from the community, which unfortunately has been quite a lot. Nobody out there seems to agree with the microtransaction model, as I covered in the previous video. I will link it down below in the description just so you guys are up to speed there. So under general thoughts here, he says that first of all, nothing in this closed test, especially when it comes to microtransactions model, is final. Our plan is to test the core game systems first before finalizing the microtransactions models. And for this closed beta test, the goal is to test new user flow iterations as well as the short-term progression system testing, because we've added the warpath system. So essentially the whole point of this beta test is to test out those systems, test out the warpath, test out microtransactions, and also unit unlocking progression in general. And so he's, I guess, just reiterating here what we all knew to begin with, that nothing of this is final. And he also says here that once we've learned enough about the main testing goals, that we are considering opening up more units to more players towards the end of this beta. So they actually did this in the previous beta. Towards the end, they started throwing these war credits at people so that you could buy whatever units you wanted. You had more than enough, you could unlock all of the units and really get stuck in and have a proper go. I don't actually know how long this beta test is going to end. I don't believe they have announced it yet, but it's been going on for what, like 3 days at the moment, so yeah, it's probably like at least a couple of weeks yet. So on the next section here, he says, our high-level development thought is this: if we focus heavily on core gameplay and core game systems, other things can be iterated upon and fixed, as compared to if the core game isn't great, it'll be very difficult to fix. Making a game with a great core game loop is not only the hardest part of making games, but it's also the most time-consuming. For example, deciding to have new units on the premium track, the free track, direct purchase from the shop, high soft currency cost, yearly unit packs for the whole year, etc. would be a problem that could be very quick to solve. But if a core part of the game is problematic, such as units, visuals in general, or how we've built a tech for this game, then these could be project-ending mistakes that can't quickly be addressed. So I understand what he's saying here. What he is essentially trying to get at is that the core gameplay loop and all of the things outside of the microtransactions are what matter at the moment, and honestly I couldn't agree more. He is correct in saying that yes, these are definitely things that are easy to change further down the road, but it still worries me a little bit that they decided to put the units behind the premium tier on the battle pass in this particular beta. There was no reason they had to do that, and they must have known that this was going to rile up the community. As soon as people saw that, they started to get pissed off, and understandably so. And this whole thing could have easily been avoided if they would have just put the units on the free tiers. I mean, people still would have been annoyed with the whole progression system, but it wouldn't have been anywhere near as bad. So why didn't they do that? I think personally it's because they wanted to gauge the community's feedback and how they reacted to it. And that's exactly the reason that I wanted to make videos on this, in fact, because I want to show that this sort of thing isn't okay and that the community don't like it. I think if we all just sat back and didn't say anything about it, then they would almost certainly push through as much monetization as they're able to get away with, especially considering that this game, let's remember, is being backed by Tencent. They are the main publisher behind it. It's a Chinese company. They have a finger in pretty much every single pie in the gaming market around the world. And what are China most known for? Yes, it is mobile games with lots and lots of pay-to-win features and microtransactions. So that is probably exactly what Tencent are looking for in this game, and therefore I think it's especially important that we have made our voices heard. So he goes on here to say that our goal is that every unit is counterable, and there's a big skill component to our game due to how much precise control players have over their units and army in-game. Therefore, it'll be very difficult to get caught in a situation where you have no answers to bring into a game if you've been playing Battle Aces a while and you have a bunch of units unlocked. For example, our goal is that you don't have to have specifically the Locust or any other one specific unit to be able to compete at the pro level. So yes, in theory, that is the idea, that a lot of the units are interchangeable, right? But doesn't that also dumb down the game? Like, if all of the units, a lot of them are just pretty similar and samey, and it doesn't matter whether you have unit A, B, or C, it's pretty much going to make your unit deck a similar level, then surely that has to water things down a bit, right? So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, first of all. And second of all, I just don't really agree, at least with the current balance of the game. And maybe in a perfect world, yes, all of the units are like perfectly balanced. And if you have unit A and I have unit B, it doesn't really matter which one we have. It all just comes down to player control and skill expression. But that just usually isn't the case in RTS games. A lot of the time, balance isn't perfect. I mean, it's never perfect. And as a great example of this, I've already seen other content creators putting out videos such as, hey, these are the best units in the Battle Aces beta, or these are the units that you should purchase first. And the reason behind that is that, yes, some units are just inherently better or more useful than others. I've also seen plenty of players complaining on Reddit that they purchased a unit and they didn't really like it, they couldn't refund it, and there's no way to actually try out a unit before you buy it. So, you know, if all of the units were sort of equal to one another, then all of those players should be happy with their choices, right? So here are a few of the options that they are thinking about. So it says here, one idea we have floating around is, what if we have a really great value of 2 to 3 units in a pack at launch? The thought here is not only could a unit pack be of great value, but just that these units will combo very well together, making it easier to get into having a more fun experience whilst playing Battle Aces. What about a specific deck pack at launch? What about a yearly unit pass that grants you every unit for the year as they get released? Or what about a launch unit pack that gives all units at launch? Keep in mind, none of these are final like we mentioned at the start, but we're really brainstorming all the possibilities to be able to locate what is best. So all 3 of those options that he just mentioned, they're still all pay to win, right? You still pay and you get those units, but to be honest, I would just prefer the game to have like a $20, $30 price tag, and I would happily pay that, get all of the units in the game, and heck, even if they wanted to have a battle pass on top of that with only cosmetics, that would be fine by me. If I wasn't interested in that, I didn't have to purchase it. But this is going to split the player base in half into paid players and free-to-play players, and the free-to-play people are just clearly going to be at a disadvantage still. So this is really the question they have in front of them. How can they monetize the game and make money? Because they do need to make money, otherwise the game's going to fail and the studio is going to shut down, but also not piss off the player base. So he continues here and says, we like to look at games of this type and have had many discussions regarding where we need to land. At a high level, if there's a spectrum between everything is free on the one hand, and the more you pay, the stronger you become on the other hand, we do want to land on as least offensive a model as possible, while still having a revenue enough to continue fully supporting the future development of Battle Aces. This was one of the things that made me so sad during previous games I've worked on at various companies. If a game doesn't continually generate some income effectively enough, the dev team could get dissolved, and we as players stop getting content updates, and we can't enjoy the game as much as we could. And that is certainly a fair point to make, Yes, the game does need to make money. Are cosmetics going to be enough in a free-to-play game if they don't gate some of the units behind microtransactions? I think that is their worry, really. It is a bit of a gamble if they just release the game, depending on the player base, of course. Like, are cosmetics going to be enough to actually encourage players to spend some money? Personally, for me, if I really, really enjoy a game and I'm investing hundreds, even thousands of hours into that game, and it's free, I have no problem buying battle passes and throwing, $30, $40, $50 in the direction of the publisher and the developers, because I think they've done a great job with the game. But that's why I give them the money, because the game is good and they've done a fantastic job. It's not really to get the cosmetics. I don't really care about cosmetics. The other way, though, if you put the units behind the paywall, I don't know, it just feels a little bit to me like you're forcing me now to pay for those units and fully experience the game. And it just feels like a little bit like putting the horse before the cart. So this next bit is actually quite interesting. He's talking about the similarity in deck building to card games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering, for example. And he says, Battle Aces is an RTS that has a big emphasis on units and decks. For example, many deck building games have elements such as random unit and card packs, and the goal is to either get lucky or buy enough card packs in hopes of getting the actual cards that you want. Second example is there are multiple layers of in-game currencies and complicated methods of acquiring the specific unit or card that you want, which could make more money but add confusion to players. Another common method is directly spending money to make your units or decks straight up stronger. Terrible idea. The more money spent on power, higher the rating and rank you will achieve. So that is obviously the most egregious kind that he's talking about there. Our stance is that we'd like to go much less aggressive than most similar games out there. And when I think about it, trading card games, they have always been pay to win. Take any trading card game around the world, ever since we were kids and before the internet even existed, people would have better cards than you because they'd opened packs and gotten those cards that you don't have. And that means their deck is better than yours. And the only way that you could increase the power in your deck is to get those cards yourself, usually by opening packs and having a random chance of acquiring them. And I think, as online trading card games like Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone have come around, they've just sort of continued in their own little bubble of trading card games, whereas most other genres have gone in a different direction. So I suppose what David's trying to say here is, since Battle Aces does have units and you have a so-called deck, maybe they can liken themselves to trading card games, but I just don't really see it that way. Like, yes, there are some similarities to a card game, but it pretty much stops at the unit deck. Outside of that, this is still very much an RTS game, and just straight up not having units available, it just doesn't feel that great. So to cap this off here, he says, this is getting long, so we'd like to give you some time to think about our points here, and we'll make sure to pay close attention to your thoughts and feedback. Let's continue to have this discussion, because we do have time before decisions need to be made. Thank you so much for your continued support, and we strongly believe in the importance of working together to iterate effectively towards the best battle aces we can make. So, I think here that the community have spoken, and I think the whole point with this post from David is him sort of saying, look, we need to make some money from the game, and this is one of the least egregious ways of doing it. Having a battle pass and putting the units behind the premium tiers, I think it's clear that they don't feel as if, like, if they just save the premium tiers for the cosmetics only, that they will make enough money. However, you're going to have to weigh up how many players you potentially stand to lose if you have any sort of pay-to-win microtransactions in your game that could result in a bunch of people just saying, you know what, I'm just not even going to try Battle Aces. I don't know how many people they have invited to the beta, at the moment, but this beta actually has even fewer players playing at the moment than the previous beta, which is quite startling to me because I expected, honestly, at least a few thousand players. It's actually only at about 300, 400, whereas the previous beta went up to like 550, 60, something like that. So dare I say it, maybe this has already put off a substantial amount of players. And actually, just as I said that, take a look at the top comment here. I think this really says it all. It says, we have time before finalizing a decision. I think you guys have less time than you think before alienating your whole core player base. I went from counting the days to the release of the first beta to not even opening the game this time around. The only reason is the unit restrictions, and I've seen a lot of people saying the same thing, both on Reddit. Also, a lot of you guys who commented on my last video said that you've just really been turned off by this whole thing. So I think in this situation, they need to listen to the community. God knows Tencent have enough money, so they definitely have the funds to just make the game, make it well, build a player base around it, and if you build it, they will come. If you make a fantastic game, you will gain a player base, and there will be people to actually pay and buy those cosmetics there who really feel like you deserve it. But if you, like I say, put the cart before the horse and force people into paying real money to unlock units in a real-time strategy game, I don't think it matters which road you go down, whether you have different unit packs or you pay for like a yearly pass and you just unlock all of them for that year. I don't think it's going to matter to people. This will never be made right in the majority of players' eyes unless you don't have any pay-to-win microtransactions in the game. Anyway, guys, this video has gotten quite long enough here. That's the last one I'm going to make on this subject, but like I've already said, I feel this kind of stuff just needs to be said. Let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comment section. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? All thoughts and feedback are welcome. Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.